Good morning, everyone. Uh, Thank you for the patience for the meeting, and then we do apologize for the technical thing with the interpreter, but I do believe that everyone is really excited to see or to join the webinar today. As we know that this is the second webinar. Yesterday we already held a very important webinar as part of the series, and then by today we want to talk more further about the issues that we concerned about. Before we start, I do also apologize uh, from the yesterday's session because I know there is some technical issues, but today we are trying our best to keep on moving forward to see more further about the issues of the ocean that we deal with. So yesterday we have a lot of interesting insight about what's going on in the ocean. We see a lot of common issues that faced by the community, and then at the same times also we have very similar struggle in the ocean, especially related to the ocean grabbing, which is exists against a mega project and development itself. But at the same time, I also believe that we see how the people struggle, how people try to protect their Mother Earth, Mother Sea, Mother Ocean, or Mother, and also they try with the community keep on protecting the Mother Ocean by keep on fighting against mega project and so on. So thank you for the committee for the WFFP, and I also have my very best colleague Priya. Maybe if you want to add more further about the last or yesterday's session, because all I believe that from yesterday I see a lot of customary community also have their own struggle how to protect the ocean in the middle of mega project, and then we see that there is a lot of things going on in the global. Priya, maybe you want to add more?
Thank you, Susan. So that was Susan Hirawati Gui who works with the People's Coalition on Fisheries Justice, or Kiara, from Indonesia. Thank you so much, Susan. I would also call back to you for a brief. So if you can come and give the brief context for today's presentations. Yes, about yesterday, we really had very in-depth and well prepared presentations from different countries. We had Zahidul Islam from Bangladesh, Suganya and Yoganathan from India, Ponchai Promlak from Thailand. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. My apologies. We also had Arman Manila from Indonesia, and Pirathas from Sri Lanka, and Jamaluddin Muhammad from Malaysia. And each of them brought in different and very significant issues related to land, and whether it was reclamations or it is, ecological disasters, climate change, or the impacts of big projects. One theme that ran across all of these presentations was, and where it all started, and also the way forward has very clearly laid in many of the presentations on looking at the customary rights, the rights of the communities over the natural resources, and the need to highlight and bring that back into the mainstream debates. And that was precisely where the idea or ideation of this entire webinar series also started, right from when the Coastal Action Network initiated, and WFFP joined, and we had a lot of debates on some of these themes, and wanted to have this webinar series as an onwards to the General Assembly that is going to happen later this year. And because these are themes and concepts that are very important for all of us in all of our movements to kind of, take the politics of the people's politics forward. So with that, I would just introduce all the presentators today. And we have thematic presentations from three resource persons and one response to yesterday's presentation. And then we have, concluding remarks also. So I'll just introduce the presentators and then hand it back to Susan for giving an overall picture about today's presentations. So we have Ifang Tang from FIAN International. So she would be giving the responses to all the presentations that we heard yesterday. Ifang is part of FIAN International and executive coordinator and working specifically on human rights issues in
മറുപടി എന്നുള്ള നിലയിലാണ് ഇഫാങ് എന്ന് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്.
Hear your comments, Ifang. And then we have Karsten Pedersen from the Transnational Institute, who has been a political activist for over 2 decades, and he has been working with the fisheries, the fisher movement, and he is also one of the founding member or initiator of the participatory action research collective, the global collective currently. So he would be presenting on the state expropriation of fisher peoples under the garb of sustainable ocean economy. So this is one of the themes that also ran across many presentations yesterday, and really looking forward, Karsten, to hear about the expropriation and connecting it to the sustainability, because that again is one of the concepts that has been hijacked over the past decade. And then we have John Spartacus, who is who is also part of the Participatory Action Research India, and is a scholar who has been working on the coastal and fisher people's issues for almost a decade. And he has been making very significant interventions at the state, national, and international level, especially on the customary rights and the traditional rights of the fishing communities. Looking forward to your presentation on recognition of the coastal rights of fisher people, assertion of customary governance in line with human rights principle. A very important presentation, Johns. And we also have Herman Kumara, the Secretary General of WFFP. Without him, probably we would not be having this meeting at this scale. So thank you very much, Herman, for encouraging and being part of it. Herman, as all of you know, has been in this movement for a very long time, since his student age, and he has been a human rights defender right from his student's time, and has continued those interventions till now. And he would be talking about fisher sovereignty, legal recognition of fisher people's customary governance over their resources. So these are very important presentations that would also give a perspective to the entire series. So it is, I'm really hoping that we would have a very engaging, session today. And each speaker has about 12 minutes. And once all the presentations are done, then we will open for questions and interventions. So, and and kindly write your questions in the chat or raise your hand. Please do mention to which presenter you are addressing or the entire panel. And kindly keep your questions and comments very brief. Sindhuja, currently we will not be taking questions, but if you have anything else, kindly do write it in the chat. thank you. I once again welcome Susan back to give the context for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Priya, for very complete thing about yesterday. It is very interesting webinar yesterday also that we see how the community have their own challenge, but they keep on moving forward in order to reclaim our Mother Ocean. So this webinar is very important for everyone. So as we know that our Earth is almost covered by water, but at the same time, so we see a lot of things which is going on in our ocean. We are connected by water. Every human being, every ecosystem in this entire Mother Earth was connected by water. For some of community, as I know, ocean, it means that as their mother, as our mother, who provide us with food and make sure all of us not getting starving. But unfortunately, at least in last 10 years, we see our mother ocean become the object of exploitation for development as the people growing as the capital accumulation ended up into the massive exploitation and make community losing access and control to their water or ocean. It's more interesting when we see that the blue economy become the pattern of new capitalism and oligarchy through our government, especially in Indonesia context, in order to let capital accumulation keep on going and grab our mother sea or ocean. As we can see, maybe you also feel this also a tourism project that end up into the massive relocation. There is the issue of renewable energy that seem is the new pattern of sustainability. They said it's sustained, but it end up with nickel mining and a lot of people relocation from their land and ocean. As you also heard from yesterday from Malaysia, for example, there is a reclamation and business as well. And then it's also, I think, mentioned yesterday that we see how conservation project like 30 by 30 disrupt local wisdom that already implemented from generation to generation. Sadly, we witness our ocean grabbing still, it is stealing our mother, our identity, our ocean, but at the same time, we see how the people trying to moving forward to gather more solidarity, to fight back, to more pushing people power to reclaim our ocean. I believe that a lot of coastal community try to fight back is because ocean is our identity. And I believe that it cannot take away from anyone or even private sector or capitalism. So this second session, in the second day, we try to gather a lot of perspective from experts, as mentioned by Priya. We have a lot of speaker, which is very expert in the ocean issues in order to see more further about what happened in the ocean. The second session of historic and artisanal coastal and marine rights of traditional fishing community with how we see conflict and way forward. We try to get a more comprehensive perspective in order to see more further about what happened in the ocean and what also to make sure that we do understand the current situation regarding land rights for fishing communities with a focus on case study and way forward. So the first session will be I would like to invite my friend Carsten Pedersen from TNI. I do believe that he have an interesting presentation, interesting knowledge to be shared. But for all the all research person, kindly talk more slower because we have an interpreter who trying to interpret the issues. So kindly be more slower while you are speaking and also try to make it in 12 minutes. And all the participants kindly mute during the presentation. For Karsten Pedersen from TNI, I welcome you to hit the floor.
I'm ready to speak. I just, because you added, you mentioned that Yifang should speak first.
Yes.
So I just want to check.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yes, Ifang would be responding to yesterday's presentations, and then we have the other presentation.
Oh, my bad. Okay, so Yifang, hello. Nice to see you again. I would like to invite Yifang to give your comment about yesterday. I think Yifang also have something to share, is it?
Yes, I have one slide to share.
Okay, thank you. This
Okay.
Yifang.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Yifang. First of all, I'd really like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of this very important dialogue. So as a response to the presentations, which were extremely rich, also showing different challenging challenges and also complex problems, as well as inspiring successes, I think. I would like to first show you quickly the overview I made based on the case studies yesterday. Then I would like to also highlight key challenges which are faced by rural agrarian communities as a way of showcasing similarities and differences with the struggles of fisher people. And you will notice that there are much more similarities than differences. And then conclude my response by sharing some lessons learned from the agrarian communities on how they have successfully fought and to secure their land rights. So I'd like to now share very quickly, if you bear with me. Let me, okay, so I don't see the entire slide, but everybody can see the slide, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, then I'll try my best. So this is what I put together based on the presentations yesterday. Like I said, it's not everything you shared yesterday. It was just extremely rich, and I'm not able to do that. But I just wanted to show you, coming from FIAM, which is a human organization, I do have this human rights lens in looking into the different cases and the impact. So I like to just quickly share that with you. So there were different projects that were shared yesterday. No, there were different projects, airport, seaport, different projects that are supported by the different actors that you see. Primarily governments were mentioned, but also actions by private actors such as investors. There were also a mentioning of different foreign actors. I heard Japan and Taiwan. So these actors are interacting with each other in the different projects, and they are causing different impacts like loss of livelihood, land acquisition, depletion, pollution, overfishing, also criminalization. I think some of you mentioned that there was no consultation prior to the project implementation and also no participation in decision-making. I want to say, in fact, that all these impacts you'll have to, from the human rights perspective, look from the from what the state, so the government of your country as duty bearers, have done or not done in causing human rights violations. So I think, in fact, some of these impacts that you see here are human rights violations. I think we can identify very clearly human rights violation vis-a-vis the right to food. If fishers no longer have income, that would impact the way he or she feeds herself or himself. You would also have violation related to the right to housing. I think this was also mentioned in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, in Bangladesh, if I'm not mistaken. And there are also other issues that pertain, for example, access to health centers was also mentioned. So these would also be a violation of the right to health. So I wanted to just show you that these impacts are in fact human rights violation, but also violations of human rights principles, like principles such as transparency, principles such as participation. And also coming to the resistance and actions. Again, this is not inclusive. There were actions that pertain to legal actions, administrative procedures like submitting memorandums, also demonstrations and networking. These were also mentioned, I think, by some of you. And I do actually have some questions in relation to the resistance actions, which we were not able to hear from you yesterday. So I think as a way forward, it will be interesting to hear what were the demands that were put forth by you as communities, and what is the strategy that you have deployed in pushing for customary rights. How are these crafted, and how are these, let's say, target some of the actors that you in relation to the foreign actors, I just wanted to highlight that when you talk about human rights, it's not just about human rights of, for example, country A fulfilling the human rights of its own people, but countries do also have to fulfill
പ്രതിരോധത്തെ ശക്തിപ്പെടുത്താൻ നിയമപരമായ ആക്ഷൻ എടുക്കുന്നു.
population. So how you see possibilities of also including actions that target governments such as Taiwan, and I think Taiwan or Japan, or yesterday, I think it was mentioned also in your case. So how do you see pushing forward your cases? I hope that we could have a different session or a separate session on this, on strategy, and also hearing from you what has worked, what has not worked, what is the strength as WFFP as a global movement. Are there some networking collaboration at the regional level? Yes, these are some questions that I have. Okay, so I would stop the presentation now. So that's just a very quick overview of what I heard yesterday, and like I said, I've been very happy to hear more from you. In comparing the different struggles, I wanted to just mention very quickly at the outset that I think it became very clear in country studies that when we talk about natural commons, which comprise not just water bodies, we're also talking about land, forests were mentioned, lagoons, fishing grounds. They're not only vast, but the natural commons and the way people use these natural commons are interconnected. And rural people do need land and natural resources in order to make from them an adequate standard of living. You have to have a place to live in security and also in dignity. You also have to have natural resources to attain the highest standard of health and also develop your cultures, including spiritual relationship with nature. So now coming to the different or similarities among agrarian communities and fisher communities, I would like to just mention a few. I know that to go into detail, but I would like to first of all highlight that from the agrarian perspective, the corporate takeover and corporatization of agriculture continues to be a huge challenge. There's a growing dominance of large agribusiness corporations over food production, but not just food production, basically through the whole food chain, also incorporating distribution, resource control. And what that does is that it shifts away from traditional, more local, small-scale food production methods toward industrial large-scale operations. And these are driven by corporate profit motives and market expansions. And we have seen how these industrial agriculture has harmed peasants and other small-scale food producers, because what it does is that it displaces people from their lands. It also monopolizes resources. It degrades the environment and also threatens their livelihood. I think it became quite clear yesterday in the case studies that this is also happening in fisheries. No, I think some of you mentioned the large-scale fishing, also aquaculture. I think our comrade from Thailand also mentioned how corporate influence in law is taking place. And I'm sure this is also happening in many of the countries that you reside. So that was the first challenge I wanted to share with you. The second challenge, though I do not remember whether it was mentioned explicitly, relates to the climate crisis. So we know how global warming, all these events have taken a toll on the lives of rural population who depend on natural resources. It has worsened land conflicts, also led to displacement of communities. And in fact, there are also instances of how some powerful actors are using climate change and environmental degradation as a reason to take land from communities. Another alarming threat, and I think it was mentioned earlier as well, is how climate change mitigation and conservation projects like 30 by 30, but also carbon offset, have led to further dispossession because market-based ecosystem restoration often comes at the expenses of local land rights. Another challenge I wanted to mention is the challenge that relate to conflict and land disputes and unequal land distribution can cause conflict. And in worst case, you have war, which often exacerbates these problems by displacing populations, destroying ecosystems, and also undermining tenure rights. The complexities of land ownership during and after conflict create very long-lasting challenge for affected communities. And with respect to fisheries, I think some of you mentioned a division or a divide among communities, and that has caused land conflict. There was an issue that relates to disputed boundary and also relocation of climate change-induced migrants, which affect fisher people. I think these were examples for Bangladesh. So you see that these challenges they're not only for agrarian communities per se, but also for fisher communities. Then I would like to also share how land concentration today is a growing global issue. I think it became also very, very clear in the different case studies. And what we have seen over the past 2 decades is extreme fast and very destructive rush for land, but not just for land, no, also water bodies that you live on. That is leading to large-scale land and water grabs, and also concentration of ownership of land and commons by influential people. From the perspective of land, for example, we know that there is international acknowledgement that land concentration is indeed a problem. And it's good to have this, let's say, acknowledgement, because that would allow for more comprehensive and open discussion about the need for land restitution and risk redistribution, which was not the case some years back. So. Okay, I only have 2 more challenges I wanted to share with you. The one is something called financialization. And I think in all the different projects you shared yesterday, you would have this concept or this challenge mirrored. So this basically adds another layer of complexity. So what we're seeing today is that increasingly not just land, but fisheries and forests, they're treated as commodities and investment opportunities. So what you have is financial actors, not only banks, but pension funds, asset managers. They play their roles in different land deals or different deals related to natural resources. And they transform natural resources into assets for profits. And these financial webs of different actors that I just mentioned are opaque. So you could have one project with so many different actors, basically, a mix of companies, a mix of investors, but also countries, that it makes extremely holding these actors accountable difficult. And we know that many social movements and CSOs see financialization as one facilitator of land grabbing and water grabbing, resulting in more dispossession. And yeah, my question would really be to many of you working on the ground, looking into the impact of different projects that you shared, whether you do look into the different financial actors that are behind some of these mega projects, and how you see having such an overview could help your strategy and crafting your strategy for pushing for your demands and restore your natural resources. Okay, then I just have one challenge I wanted to share with you. I really would like to see whether this is more of the issue for agrarian communities, or whether this is also something that you are noticing happening in your work. So digitalization of land is basically transforming land administration. It was initially promoted as a good tool to have more transparency by states and also public sector actors. What they do is that these technologies often exacerbate exclusion and dispossession. So from the perspective of land, land becomes data, it becomes data that any investors anywhere in the world could access and transform local land into investment assets. What it does is also that digital land registries, they facilitate some kind of, virtual land transaction and allows for abuse of power. So in a research that was conducted in Colombia, we found out that digital platforms which connect farmers to carbon markets were raising concerns about data transparency and also potential harm in environment. We have also noticed that in Brazil, digital land cadastries, which are official records or map that shows where boundaries are for the owners of different land, plots of land, and the value of land, have in fact led to new forms of dispossession. So be very, very interesting hearing from you whether this challenge that is emerging in the context of agrarian communities, in the context of land, is also a challenge and a threat for you. It's a convergence against land grabbing, but it really put together social movements against land grabbing, but also water grabbing, and they have been fighting against land grabbing to protect communities' land rights. So they focus on defending customary tenure rights, which were recognized by law, but it lacked proper protection and therefore leaving communities vulnerable. So thanks to this convergence effort, the Mali agricultural land law was finally passed in 2017, which recognizes customary tenure rights and allows rural communities to manage their land through something called village land commissions. These commissions are made up of all community members, including both women as well as youth. And what they do is these commissions help resolve conflicts and secure land. And by 2023, there were about 300 community commissions were established by different communities. So if you look at the strategy that this convergence has used, it's really a combination of different mobilization, grassroots mobilization, documentation of land grabbing, public campaign, policy advocacy, and also multi-actor engagement with governments, land experts, CSOs, but also international organizations such as FAO. And just to also say that this convergence was quite active during the negotiation of the FAO tenure guidelines, which I always consider the brother guidelines or sister guidelines of the SSF guidelines. And they have, in fact, successfully utilized the tenure guidelines as a key reference in their advocacy and help their demands for the recognition and protection of customary land rights. And maybe if you would allow me just 30 minutes, I wanted to also share the example of landmark achievement, which is the adoption of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Rural People in 2018. So it's a result of almost 2 decades of persistent efforts spearheaded by the global peasant movement, La Via Campesina, including protests, negotiations, and consultation, and finally succeeding in securing the recognition of peasant and rural people's right to land. And I just wanted to conclude my intervention by saying that UNDROP do also include fisher people, and all the principles and articles that are mentioned in UNDROP could also be used by fisher people for your own strategy and for pushing for your territories. So I conclude, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. It's very interesting thing that you share, because I also noticed that in terms of climate issues, it's highlighted in every region. I think that now climate crisis impact become the business. We see how the conservation project just ongoing on in Indonesia, for example. There is a lot of area or coastal which is highlighted as the red zone, and they were affected. People are relocated because they afraid that it will be causing a tsunami, and then it will cause a lot of loss and damage if community still living there. But at the same time, the government developing the new company near in the red zone. So it's kind of tricky thing that we see, and also there's a lot of things that you share, but I also want to mention about the digitalization, which is very important for everyone in Indonesia and everywhere. I think there's a lot of spatial planning, especially marine and land, which is also notified as the form of exploitative and expansion thing that can be used by the actor that you mentioned. But there are some of the thing that on the chat column, for example, there is a good suggestion. Uh, it's really interesting that Priya mentioned about various countries movement, and also if we can look the financial web in institution responsible, because this is also linked to many mega project which is ongoing on in many area. And then also there is Vijaya mentioned that this is the case in Mali in Africa, where there is 17,000 acres have been grabbed. I think there is a lot of issues which is ongoing on, but full thing that we can heard from you, and then it's also give us better understanding about what's going on exactly in the ocean and how the people are going to face and how we are going to moving forward. And I also want to add that maybe holistic approach should be concerned as the thing that we can think about what we are going to fight back in the middle of this chaotic situation. Thank you so much, Ivang, and sorry to yeah, just keep you at the very beginning and then to cut you. But this is very interesting perspective from Ivang. If I allow that, I would like to continue to the next resource person. Is it okay if we invite a Karsten? And then maybe with the presentations is already okay. Priya or Arun, can you help
Yes.
with that?
Yes,
and then also,
I'll be sharing the presentation.
yes,
Let me know when to do it.
Okay, and also kindly slower and more louder for the research person to speak, and also for all the participants kindly mute while we are presenting. Thank you, Carson. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And thanks for organizing this. And it is, as always, a pleasure and honor to be part of all your conversation. Yeah, first of all, I mean, good day to everyone out there in Asia, but also to the rest of the world. I know we have many participants, and I also know that we have participants who are actually not in the Zoom room, but who sit in meetings under trees somewhere in India and in meeting rooms, different places in Asia as well. And I think it's fabulous how you manage to get many people, many fisher leaders on board who are not necessarily able to join us via the actual Zoom, but who join in smaller meeting groups. Yeah, so I mean, yesterday, the cases that you all presented from the different countries provided more evidence of the ongoing expropriation. I think this evidence, to document this evidence, is so crucial. It is so important. We've heard similar evidence from the Blue Economy Tribunals a few years back. We've heard similar evidence from the Oceans People Conference that you in Asia and WFFP also hosted back in 2022. We've heard similar evidence from the Fisher People Tribunal in South Africa that was completed less than a month ago, and also from the Fisher People Tribunal in Brazil last year. So all of this information is absolutely key to document and get out there to the decision makers in the various countries and also internationally. One thing I think we should put more focus on is to also document the scale. And when I say the scale, then yesterday I was thinking, when you did your presentations, I was thinking, so how many people is it that are actually affected by this? And it's not that easy to come up with a number on this, but it's in the tens of thousands of fisher peoples from those cases that you presented in 6 countries. And we know that in all of your countries, there's so many more cases that could be documented. So this tells us something about the scale of this problem of ocean grabbing that we are confronted with in this world. It would be really important, I think, to get more documentation on these numbers. And I say this because internationally, in many conversations, in international meetings, but also in a lot of the documents that are produced by academics working on fisheries, they constantly speak about numbers and say, for example, how many fishers who depend on fishing, but they never ever speak about the number of fishers who are being expropriated because of all the different forms of ocean grabbing that was referred to yesterday. Words, and then I want to speak about the state. There's an Indian professor, Vivek Chibber is his name. He grew up in India, and as a child or young man, he moved to the US with his family. And here he started his academic.
When to start the sharing, right?
Yes. Sorry, you can share, Priya. Thank you.
Okay.
So Vivek Chibber moved to the US and started academic career, and now he's a professor at New York University. And you can just go to the next one, Priya. And Vivek Chibber, he's done some great work describing what capitalism is in 3 different booklets. In a language that is easy to understand. We have these books, so you can also ask for these books if you would like to read them. And what he is saying is that, and this is now on the screen, that the state is structurally dependent on private investment as a steady stream of revenue to fund its operations. Revenues are acquired through various sources of taxation. So what this means is the way the state is able to operate and finance or fund all the different state programs, education, health, social services, etc. That is through taxation or other forms of revenues that come into the state. And this primarily for the state is based on private investments or private property. So this is why, yesterday we heard about aquaculture, for example. So the argument is that all the big aquaculture companies, they are important because they provide income for the state. So this also tells us that, as Vivek also is outlining, that the real power under capitalism doesn't reside in the state. It actually resides in the economy because it depends on the economy. So if left to its own, the state cannot be relied upon as a counterbalance to the power of the capitalist class. So what this means is basically that the state should be accountable to the people in the various countries. But because of the influence by the capitalist actors, it is actually not. We heard yesterday this being mentioned explicitly in the presentation from Thailand, with reference to how the capitalist class, so that is, for example, the big companies in agriculture or any other sector, how they mingle with the state and how they manage to control the state. So what the argument here is from the side of the state is that in order to generate jobs and continue economic growth, it is important to continue to allow for foreign investors, for example, to come into the economy in the various countries. But what we know from all the evidence that you have spoken about is that what we see, what the result actually is of this form of growth-oriented capitalist development is that customary rights, traditional rights, are being converted into private property in different forms. What we also see is that foreign direct investment is an important ingredient in this. And what we also see is a lot of deregulation. So when I say deregulation, it means that the state is reforming its policies so that companies will not be bound to take sufficiently care of nature. So it is reforms that also allows for companies to use chemicals. And that is, for example, the case in shrimp farming in Asia. Now, you can go to the next slide, Priya. So this has been the development path that the state has relied upon in many decades now. And this is the case in the countries in Asia where we heard presentations yesterday. But I will argue it's also today the case.
And พยายามดึงดูดนักลงทุนพยายามจะแปล
dessus. Au contraire, c'est un
the situation, and especially in the global south today, then there is what is called the Committee for the Abolition of Illegitimate Debt. They have done a lot of research on the state of the economy of nation states in all over the world, and in particular the global south. And what they wrote recently is that citizens of the global south now face the worst debt crisis since the global records began. Debt service is absorbing an average of 38% of budget revenues. Debt is pushing aside key spending to confront social and environmental crises. Debt service equals combined total spending on education, health, social protection, and climate. So what this tells us is that even though the state has persistently argued that we need this type of development for all these years, then we can see the result. The result is that it doesn't work. because countries are more indebted than ever. Now, the irony here is, I'm soon out of time, I see, but the irony here is that even though there's this clear evidence that this growth model doesn't work, then the governments around the world are still arguing we need more of the same. We need to open up our markets. We need more investments. We need more private property. So this is how the state functions. Knowing that I'm a bit out of time here, I just want to, in relative few words, speak about one of the cases that came up yesterday. So that is a case of conservation of nature, because this also connects to what I've just been mentioning.
Demantissement étrangère.
Addressing climate change, it's all about addressing the biodiversity crisis. But the way this is done, and Yifang also mentioned this, the way this is done is for conservation to be a profitable business. So the idea is that in order to conserve nature, we have to be able to make profit on nature. So what has happened, and this started many years ago on ocean issues. It started in 2012 in Rio de Janeiro, when oceans for the first time was really big on the agenda at the United Nations Sustainable Environment Summit. And slowly and years later, oceans became featured more and more prominently on the agenda. In 2015, at the Climate COP in Paris, this was the first time that blue carbon was high on the agenda. Then we didn't hear about blue carbon for quite a number of years. But recently, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So we know we have the climate COPs where all the governments meet every second year. That is under that convention. Here it was agreed to have ocean dialogues, is what it was called. These takes place at the annual technical meetings of the climate convention. So in 2023, so last year, there was one ocean dialogue. Here you had 250 participants. You had the World Economic Forum. This is a club for some of the biggest transnational corporations. It's a club for just about 1,000 private corporations. They participated. You had all the big environmental organizations. They participated. You did not. The records that I've been able to look at shows that there was not a single representative from small-scale fishing. In this meeting, there were two agenda items. The one was blue foods, is what they call it, or aquatic food. So that is aquaculture and wild capture fisheries. And that's the topic of the next webinar series. So we'll go more into the details on that next we speak. But the other topic was conservation, but it was actually more on blue carbon. So there's this international push for more blue carbon. Now I have to briefly explain what that is. It's technical and requires more time to unpack, but in brief, the idea is you take a lagoon or a coastal forest reserve. Then you say, okay, let's make this. Let's fence this off and make it a nature area where people are not allowed. This is for protection of nature. That's an argument. Then some accountants, climate accountants, they will say, okay, in here we have all these trees, we have all these plants, all these animals, that amounts to so much carbon that is contained. Then this carbon is then converted into what we call carbon credits. Now these carbon credits enter the financial markets. So this nature reserve somewhere in Tamil Nadu is actually now becoming an asset. It has carbon credits in it, and these can be traded. And because companies need carbon credits because they have made certain commitments to protect nature and solve the climate crisis, then they can buy these credits. And with these credits, they can say, okay, now we have done good. Now we've done something for the climate. But what it means is, I'm almost finished.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for taking so long. But so what this means is that your nature is now private property because you have all the carbon credits locked into them. And then this private property is defended by the state. And we know sometimes defending of private property also brings different forms of violence with it. So that was, I mean, in very brief words, what these carbon credits are about, what blue carbon is. And I will conclude here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Karsten. Sorry for cutting you in the middle of a very interesting presentation. But it is very important presentation because we see a lot of going on. How we are thinking, we're supposed to think that documenting not only the fisher people who are produce as small food producer, but also we have to concern and do the documentation about the people who were affected by ocean grabbing. So it's going to be very interesting and very important to do the documentation. And also conversation about the tax revenue, which is also become something very important, but also it become the entry point for every state to gain more taxes. But sometimes there's a lot of ocean grabbing in the name of increasing tax and revenue. And the last thing also about how the capitalism itself changed the communal and customary right and land become more private property. And then we also see how the debt crisis keep on increasing in every state, especially in Asia, I think. And then the last presentation is very important about the conservation and then the blue carbon issues, blue market and everything, because it is happening. We should think to manage a meeting about this, because nowadays there is a lot of community was encouraged to do the conservation, and they were encouraged to do the carbon calculation. But what we are thinking that it could be against the local wisdom that they already run from generation to generation. I believe that a lot of community already protecting their marine resources without any incentive thinking how they're going to sell the carbon and so on. Just thinking that it's very important. So in the next, thank you so much, Karsten. It is very important presentation from you and important insight from you. Yes. Shall we continue to the second?
Yes, Susan.
I would like to invite Jones. He would like to talk further about the recognition of postal right officer people, assertion of customary governance in line with human rights principle. So, Jones?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Clear. Kindly
Yeah.
talk more slower, brother.
Yeah. Can you now? Yeah. So, good morning, all. Thanks for Coastal Action Network and WFFP for organizing this historical event. This is also an historical event to be mentioned because it's first of its kind that WFFP has been activated the Asia Pacific Regional Flora. The meetings and the webinars which has been activated following to the general as following to the General Assembly 8. So I thank all the presenters yesterday and also today, Susan, Ifang, Cardston, who have been giving a valuable inputs on how the violations, historical subjugation of our rights has been illustrated, has been experiencing by the fisher people has been well narrated. And all the unions has come up with a report called Ocean Grab. That Ocean Grab gives us an opportunity to understand how the resources has been grabbed and how we are dispossessed. From that, then we move on to after General Assembly taking up the resolutions, we move on to the larger WFFP movement, in Asia Pacific move on to the tribunals. We conducted tribunals on the ongoing blue grab, how the resources has been grabbed and the tribunal's verdicts has been come out. That is also loud enough to show that we have been losing our fundamental rights. To be noted that fundamental rights, customary rights is a fundamental political rights of the fisher people. So that has to be said in every flora. It is not when we say human rights based approach and other approach. First of all,
విలీనం చెందుతా వచ్చారు అలా క్రమేణ ప్రతి అని
சிந்தனையானது கண்ணோட்டமானது உரிமை
জোন্স বলছেন যে খালি হিউম্যান রাইটস বা মানবাধিকারের কথা
เราเรากล่าวถึงเรื่องเหล่านี้อย่างชัดเจนแต่มันไม่ถูกนำมาปฏิบัติ
fishing, but inside they are saying that it is customary tenure rights and other land rights and everything, but they are again trying to make it as fisher people means fishing rights over the fisheries. That is not at all true. So here the most of the thing that I understood and that we are all experiencing, we all know we have been crying a lot of all these violations, but what the first question comes
Les droits coutumiers sont un droit politique pour les pêcheurs. Leur droit sur la terre, l'eau et les ressources est un droit politique.
Fish as a commodity. So these are the terminologies that are killing us a lot. And we all devised guidelines, voluntary guidelines, to bring up our voices on the resource rights and bring up our voices on recognition, which doesn't accept aquaculture, the guidelines. But still 10 years ago, still it is more than 10 years now, we are in the 11th year, no state has recognized that guidelines. With that, we can understand how the global international organizations are seeing fisher people sell out the rights of the fisher peoples. They are celebrating the SSF guidelines 10th year anniversary without providing us the fundamental political right. It itself a human rights violation. It's itself a human rights violation, but nobody is talking that. Nobody say. We recently in the COFI, our General Secretary and all our friends from WFFP, we raised this. The SSF Summit also in the last month. We have raised this. But still our voice has to be loud. We have to be loud enough to bring all our violations. Coming up to this, who is a fisher? Who is a fisher? Who is a fisher? Small scale, large scale. In that scenario, I understand that the names tribes, when you see the forest people or the tribes, there were tribes, primitive tribes, aborigine tribes, tribal folks. These are the terminologies. But the movement for the past 40 since 1980s, they started and they come into one umbrella called indigenous people. That word indigenous peoples came from the movement of the forest people. Same way, if you see peasants, farmers, struggles of the peasants. It's farmers, small farmers, large farmers, small producers, large producers. Finally, it came up with the word called peasants, struggles of peasants. These two names came from the movement, not from the FAO, not from the UN organizations. There the problem comes. For us, as I always say, the father of our WFFP, the co-founder, has given a right name on seeing all these dialogues as fisher peoples, which means it includes marine, inland, fisher peoples, indigenous people, coastal communities who are dependent upon fisheries, all together as peoples. The word peoples means communities in large, not a people of particular sector. Peoples, that's what indigenous peoples, and it is fisher peoples. But when we say fisher peoples now, there's a huge huge blockages as challenges when we talk about this. What it is only SSF, what it is, we can use, already there is a guidelines called SSF. Not at all. So this is the right time. That's what since the beginning we have been saying this. Oceans have civilizations. Every river civilizations have civilizations. There are fisher people have their own civilizations. Ocean people have their own civilizations. First of all, we have, with the declaration, we came up with 5 R's. Recognition. Recognition means when you talk about the human rights principles, when we are recognized as indigenous people, then only we can claim the resource rights. That's what it is very clear. Still that we can't do anything. Recognition is main. Nowhere the recognition has come. If you see all the conventions talk about the resources, even UNDROP. We have to be declared as indigenous people by the states. But as Scotland state is doing all appropriations on us. Then we should, that's what I'm saying, that first of all, R should be there, recognition should be there. We should push as fisher peoples everywhere, not small scale, large scale. Then redistribution of our resources. R should be there. Redistribution. We should ask for redistribution of resources, not only for fisheries. It's not a fishing right at all. It is not at all the fishing right. We are amphibians. We have rights over the land. We have the rights over the sea. We are amphibians. We are amphibians in nature. So there should be redistribution of resources. For that, our resources has to be recognized. Resources has to be identified. And it has to be done. All the conventions like biodiversity or climate change conversations or conventions are saying that document the traditional knowledge, document the territories of the people, indigenous people. Still date, nobody has done that. Then the third R is representation. Representation in all levels. As WFFP, we should be represented from the local to the global level. Wherever face, representation gives us the political identity. We need the political identity at everywhere, at every parties. Then we can restitute and reimagine our future for our future generations. Representation is more important. Representation as fisher peoples is more important. The words small scale, large scale are all divisive factors. Harvest, post-harvest, post-harvest activities, harvesting fish. Nothing we are harvesting, we are hunting. We are hunting. We are hunting everything. There is no terms of hunting. So these terminologies has to be culled out. We should be united in one principle called fisher peoples, because the ongoing violations Carsten was explaining and Ifang was explaining. The problem is that there is a food summit going on, which pushes aquaculture, because they have seen other fish food, the growing aquaculture. We will debate in the next webinar. That is one summit is happening, and they are corporatizing that. Then there is ocean conference to sell out all our resources as blue economies. Then there is a coffee summit where we can have space, but there is no space for capture fishes. So this is how I see it, is as an apartheid that on the fisher peoples, apartheid on the fisher peoples. We have been excluded everywhere. It is systematic. It is legitimate. They are doing it legally. They are doing it. So this is the right time. That's what I used to say that, see, for example, you may say that what a new concept is coming. For example, sun rises in the east, sun sets in the west. This is the agreed universal truth as per the grammar, as per accepted grammars. But as we are learned, can somebody say that whether the sun rises? Nobody can say. Sun doesn't rise. Sun revolves. Earth revolves. There is no way to sun rise in the east, sun sets in the west. It's a universal lie. Because we are used to it. It is educated like that. This is how these terminologies will kill us, kill our identities. So we have to be, because I usually say this, why they call us fisher people? Because we eat fish a lot as subsistence food, and we hunt fish. Then farmers should be kept as brinjal man, those who are eating potato man. They should not call us fisherman and fisherwoman like that. They should call them, why are you calling them farmers? There is no question on that. So we have to break all these barriers. We have to break all these barriers throughout. Terminologies is first. We should become in one unified word, fisher peoples. And we should, because we are crying a lot. Violations, experiences. I have been seeing from the age of 23, I have been seeing all these webinars. We are putting tribunals, we are bringing testimonies. But still March, when I went into the Human Rights Council, I understand that in the Geneva, there is no files moved or fisher peoples. Fisher peoples word is new to them. Fisher peoples violations are new to them. For the human rights actors, it's a very big challenge for FIAN International and us to make out the relation of the human rights violations, the tribunal reports and the violations, to make them that this is happening among all the fisher peoples from north to in the Pacific, the Caribbean, and Asia, in the Indian Oceans. So this is how we are being marginalized. We are politically marginalized. Fisher peoples are politically marginalized because the world runs with the democratic principle of vote banks. We are less vote banks. So we have to take this ours in hand, and our General Assembly is going to place in November, and we have to take this further. Finally, I want to say only one thing. One thing is that there is a say in Tamil that if the child cries only, they will know that whether it is crying for food or it is crying out of pain. The same way fisher people's life is here. Still far, we are crying, but we are crying inside the sea. Fish is crying inside the sea. Nobody can see. Now we should cry out and say that this is human rights violation. And this cry is a war cry. It should be a war cry from our GA8 assembly. It should be very clear to the international communities that we are fisher peoples in one nets. And when I say representation, I take the examples from the hunting. We don't hunt. When we hunt tuna, we will have a different hook. We hunt sardine, we have a different hook, different net. Like that, all the spaces, we need to have sharpened hooks, sharpened twinned nets for different spaces. For a crab net is different, everything is different. Different spaces in the right to food space, we should talk differently, but as fisher peoples as one. So strategies has to be devised, sharpened. Let's wait for our G8, all be together. Let's have a war cry to show the communities that this is we are fisher peoples and we belong to the ocean and the rivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Johns. It's right on time. But your presentation is very interesting also because I just thinking that it is really, really challenges for fisher people to, in the middle of chaotic terminology and then definition which is rise up. But at the same time, also there is like a lot of thing which is going on in the global context. But our existence, it's like not anywhere. Vijayan mentioned about, and you also mentioned about a lot of important meeting when the fisher people are being not notified as very important actor, not only for producing food, but also as the owner, the right holders of the ocean and coastal. It is true that we have to think more further what we are going to bring in the next General Assembly. It's gonna show our identity as a fisher people, and it is very important. Thank you so much, Jones. It's very interesting for you to share, brother. So, if you don't mind, we're going to move to another session. I think it's gonna be Herman Kumara. He is a General Secretary of WFFP and also NAFSO. He's going to talk more further about fisher sovereignty, about the legal recognition of fisher people customary governance over their resources. Pak Herman?
Okay, Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly. Do you have something to share or?
No, nothing. I don't have anything to share, only verbally, not more than that. So,
Okay,
I have a problem with my camera. I have a very old computer, so that I need to renew one. Anyway, let's see in later stage. But I want to share something verbally. So, okay, in the concept note, very clearly it says Fisher's Commons. So I think we need to rewording it as Fisher People's Commons. So when we talk about Fisher People's Commons, yes, we see that it is men and also women. They engage for their governing their resources in the traditional governing systems. So as the custodians of the water bodies. So fisher people, the men, let's say, they are the people who are more work in the sea and water bodies, access and governed by themselves. And also the fisher women, they more engage for more socio-economic well-being of the families. So that is how it is mentioned in the concept note. So when we come to the fisheries governance systems, actually we are now claiming to govern the water bodies, coastal ecosystems, coastal lines, maybe inland fishing areas, adjacent forest and water bodies, and so on in this context. Yes. But when we see how the global governing systems by UN bodies like FAO, what they are doing, actually, they are totally neglecting the rights of the communities, rights of the fisher peoples. So they are more, at present, they are talking more about blue transformation, which is not necessarily allow fisher peoples to come in and engage and govern their water bodies and adjacent land. So we can see last coffee in 36 session, which was held in July last this year, we saw the acting assistant director of fisheries, acting director general of fisheries, how he praised the aquaculture, how it contributed to the fisheries production in the world today. So he said that it is 60% of culture fishery, that is aquaculture contributed to the world fish production. So he projected that it will be goes further up in coming decade or so. So that means, do the fisher peoples have the right to control over their resources in that context? Do we have the power in our hand to engage the fishing industry into fish production and also govern the water bodies as we expect in this system. So my and unsustainable seaweed and streaky kumba collection in many places. But how existing laws help them to contribute, help them to ensure that sustenance or to sustain their livelihoods, basically. And also, we can see the state policies and corporate interests, not necessarily the people's interests. So we, all the presenters repeatedly say that. So in that, it's a legal battle against this bottom trawling and also the court cases and destructive fishing. And also we are trying to advocate a new sustainable fisheries policy and so on. At the same time, in my country, at least in Sri Lanka now, the government is coming up with new Fisheries Act, Fisheries Management Act. It's a bill right now. 2023, they brought it, but it's still under Parliament, but not necessarily they took into the, they did not pass it there because of the pressure from the people. So they just want to take all the ownership of the water bodies, fishing industry from the fisher peoples. So that is the situation. But of course, we saw some of the practices, and we can see in many areas, like yesterday, we saw several practices what they have promoting for customary governance. In Sri Lanka, in Negombo Lagoon, we have our own system, stake net fishery. So how people are governing their resources without having any hindrance, without having any disturbances, but having their own management systems. So how do we bring them out? And also we heard during this SSF summit in Malaysia, the Kegel system, which proposed by, practicing by Malaysian inland fishers. We can see them. And also in Sri Lanka, in some places, we have stake nets. So how the fishers are maintaining or governing their own resources in coastal areas. So these are the things that we are having. These are some examples only. There are so many examples, but we know because of the collective efforts, not necessarily it's only fisher people's effort, but a collective effort of social movements. We saw how the free, fair, informed consent was promoted, or at least put into the paper in VGGT and also VGSSF, the voluntary guidelines of governance of tenure, land and forest, and also SSF guidelines. So all these are some very positive things which could help people to take the things into their hands. But while we are trying to ensure the people's governance in that, maybe we need to have very clear understanding what we are going to do. At the same time, we need to, it's mentioned, Jones also, he mentioned that how do we document the existing fisheries governing systems? So we need to have a very clear mechanism to adopt how we are going to document them about the sustenance and ecological protection, and finally assert our rights through governing this the system. So this is something that we need to take care of in the coming days. And also, how do we replicate the similar efforts to other regions? Because this is important. We are now talking about in Asia Pacific, but to make a global voice, as John rightly said, it is our role as social movements to bring these ideas to the respective governing bodies, let's say the UN bodies and so on, to have a common voice from various regions, African region, Latin American region, Asia Pacific region, Europe, American, and all these people together. When we voice out only, we can have a kind of very strong voice to assert our rights, assert the way that we need to make our governance system. So as fisher people, we should be united and fight together collectively to make sure this is happen. And we ensure this general body meeting, which will be held in Brazil this year, this November, will be a very critical, decisive moment that we all come together and decide how we move forward in this direction. So I think I should thank all the people who committed to this work. We know how these organizers break their heads to make this happen. So thank you very much. So that's all for the time being.
Thank you, sir. This is very important presentation because we see that how the people are going to assert our basic right in the middle of, there is a lot of tools which is ongoing on. There is, we have SSF guideline, we have a lot of things, tenure, and then a lot of things. But the thing is how the community, how the people are going to encourage or push our country to following the guideline that already owned by us. That's also the important homework from everyone, especially for Indonesia, because we're still far away from what we see. The mission of the FAO should be engaged in the decision or regulation making process. So it's a very important thing that brought by Herman. I think Priya, is it? Thought, comment, everyone?
Sanat already raised his hand.
Okay. I think we have to give to Sanat. Okay, you can.
Yes, thank you,
yeah.
Susan.
Thank you, Sanat.
Thank you, Herman. And it's my pleasure that I am here to talk with all of you and also for the fisher community actually in Bangladesh. Actually, the Bangladesh people of fishers are very extremely suffering from the mechanized policy of the fishing in Bangladesh. Actually, the big trawlers are coming to the very near to the shores. We know that there is no any rule for 20 nautical miles, but they're coming in the seashore so near. So the small scale fishers are not getting this scope for fishing in the nearby. So it's our demand to discuss this issue in GA8 in Brazil in November, that we collectively should protect this mechanized boats to come to the shore actually. And my request to Herman to discuss collectively, because my two colleagues will be there, I will be not. So there will be a strong message and voice should be there to inform all the governments and also to the FAO. FAO is very much diplomatic now. They are not concerned about the SSFs, though they have developed the guidelines, but they are not now in according to the guidelines. So this is the point for us, and we should do collectively. And thank you very much. And I have taken a lot of points from Jones. Thank you, Jones, and thank you, Herman, Priya, and Susan. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Sanat. Priya, I think some of Jones, are you there? Okay.
No,
thank you.
Nivovo has raised his hand, so we can go to Nivovo. Nivovo, kindly unmute yourself. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Good day. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. I'm Neville from South Africa, also working with coastal communities, and we have also be fighting the oil and gas giants from doing seismic surveys in the water and doing oil and gas activities in the water, and it's really problematic. But let me come to the small scale fishes. The fishes that is so dependent on the ocean is also being in the forefront of that fight and resistance against the oil majors. So now we have a problem that the government has obligated fishers to register as being the small-scale fishers under these cooperatives, but this system is not working. It's almost like Joan's presentation. It's terminology that they've been given to people, and it's in direct conflict. And some of them have been crying and moaning about the fact that it's in direct conflict with their indigenous methods and skills of fishing. So their indigenous ways of fishing and their skills and their ways that they have been fishing is now being not accepted, in a sense that the government has now forced them to be limited to a catching basket. They are only allowed to catch specific species within a basket, within that basket. And when they are going out to hunt, funny enough, there are fishing fish species that bite that is not part of their basket. So if they do catch that, they are now criminalized and taken to authorities and not allowed to catch any other fish. And this is in direct conflict. This is why Jones's thing is so accurate in saying that we have adopted terminology that is not our own as people of fisher people. It's not our own practices. It's not our own skills, because it's in conflict with our methodology and our ways of hunting the fish as fisher people. And that is the scenario we are sitting with here in South Africa. On top of that, and it's still the extractive and oil and gas industries that also wants to do oil and gas activities in our waters as well. And now our people have got that limitation, and they also have the limitation of being narrowed to a basket. And on top of that, there's water and ocean grabbing, that they are not allowed to go to fish in particular places, and not allowed to go fish in particular times. They have curfews that they need to can only catch from this hours to that hours. And the indigenous cultural practice says that you can even fish overnight, but that is now being prohibited for them to fish on those methods. So this structural traps of the capitalist system is really oppressing people, and especially the marginalized people within here in South Africa as well. That is our experience that we have experienced, other than the oil and gas industry that also wants to do seismic surveys, car power ships, or oil and gas extractive as well. On top of that, that is our struggle that we have on the ground currently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nevawe.
Yes, thank you. I do want to raise one question for all of us, and I think maybe in particular for Jones and Herman. Over the years, and when I say over the years, it's more than 2 decades, over and over again. But I do not see that materialize. There has been reference to the small-scale fishery guidelines, the international UN instrument that is supposed to protect the rights of small-scale fisher peoples all over the world. But after 10 years, we do not see any material improvement on the ground. So it still does not work. So surely there's a need to do something different. And so this comes to, Jones, you spoke about fisher peoples as hunters, and how the hunters use, how you use hooks and nets, and you use particular hooks and nets depending on what you're hunting for. Is it a small fish, a big fish, etc.? But I think this also applies when we speak about political tactics and strategies. So what kind of hooks and nets is it that you are using? And there's a need for something new. So maybe you have to sharpen one hook, or maybe you have to develop a new net or something as a political strategy. So what is this political strategy? What can be done different, or what do you have to do more of? So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Further,
Jones or Herman, would you like to respond to that?
Herman, I can.
Go ahead,
Okay.
John.
Yeah. So that's what I said. This hooks and nets, because we are been. That's all. We have been after the Human Rights Council last February. In the March, we have raised on the right to food. The special rapporteur has come with the report, and we were there, and also we raised we raised commands to the raised commands to the right to food report. But what is lacking? That's what when Karsten was asking the political strategies. We have to go to the spaces of Human Rights Council. We have to whatever we have said now, testimonies has to be go as human rights violations. We have to, that is one strategy, because right to development, there is separate sessions, right to climate change separate section. And there is also in the UNDP, there is also determining the territories, customary rights. There is special rapporteurs for that. So the FIAN was always saying this, we have to approach different rapporteurs, place our reports, and grasp places with our support organizations, and we have to take, that is one strategy. Second strategy is that we have to we have to take up the voices in a different way. What I was trying to say is that even in the COFI, the recently what we said, that we have to have parallel meetings to showcase how we have succeeded in that. When the SSF summit has been happening and the COFI, we came up with the report, and we have said we have submitted to them. That is another strategy. So that's what I'm saying, that there should be a parallel. We have working groups in WFFP. We have to activate all the working groups, all the region aspects, and follow up this. And we have to be very active in the upcoming years. Then only we can at least put a block to all these places, particularly UNDROP. Space for fisheries. Fisheries is part of it. But this fisheries is part of the present struggle. So fisheries, there is a separate working group for fisheries. We have to create, we have to be involved in the working groups. These are the UN spaces that we can occupy, where FIAN International, TNA, have been very supportive in us to place, and also SITAM. There are many organizations which I came to know after the representations to the council. That is one strategy. In the region wise, that's what, when I say terminologies, Karsten was mentioning the SSF guidelines, voluntary guidelines, VGSF guidelines. Problem is that state has to say who is the fisher people to implement that law. No state will say that, because state, as Karsten said, state is the violator of the rights. State involves in uprising. State is a rentier capitalism state. Then that is also a problem. That's a major problem of how it is not being implemented. That's what I said, that not implementation of VGSF itself is a fundamental political, it's a violation of the fundamental political right to the fisher people. We have to celebrate it. We have to space out this. So we have to pressurize locally. Always Nazir says, work locally and act globally. So the local pressure strategies of all our member organizations, if we create case studies every year, 2 case studies, 3 case studies, and pressure is here and there, we will be more visibilized, our voices will be more clear. So I think that after the General Assembly resolution, we should, that's what I want also to highlight 2 things. One thing is that SSF guidelines, when we ask for implementation, now FAO has come with a new strategy called National Plan. Each state, they are coming with a National Fisheries Plan, which is exactly opposite, because it includes aquaculture and everything, and they are trying to create a national plan. Usually it is a global strategic plan where we evolve, where we monitor the VGSF. Now they are creating an alternative in the sense a different space. If you ask for sugar, they will give for salt. It is like that. So they are creating another document to showcase that we are being very good for the fisher people plan. Second thing is that I have been I've been coordinating the WFFP Youth Assembly. I've been seeing all the reports and I'm drafting the Youth Assembly this thing with all our friends. What I understood is that in the last 3 years, there were 5 to 7 reports from FIO and all the World Bank and everything that blue economy supports youths, fisher youths, blue economy and youths, because it generates opportunities for youths. And there is a different narrative of different youths, different fisher youths from different people on reading their reports. They didn't highlight the the migration and other parts. So this is how the terminologies has been putting. We can't see that there are many reports. That's what, as Carsten said, I'm coming back to that. Sharpen our tools, sharpen our nets, tools, hooks to cut down, to catch out fish. Otherwise, so strategies are with us. Take the General Assembly as one platform where we can unite, sit, discuss, strategize, and then we can take forward. Thank you.
Okay, may I also add few things, not long as Jones, but maybe very brief. One thing is that we need to have narratives, very clear narratives, what we think about this current system, current terminologies and so on. That's mentioned, Jones, but that is very necessary because in the fisheries, we are not enriched about such narratives to have counter the let's say mainstream corporate narrative. So we need to have very clear understanding. That should be trickled down or to go to the our masses, our people, the political education process, which I should say. Okay, we are not eating yet. Okay, we are waiting for food. Anyway, so we necessarily we need to have a very clear political education process with our masses. So that is something very important to bring masses forward because it's our struggle, the local level. Yes, of course, we can think globally, but really we have the struggle in our current states and the government. So in that, our people should be organized. They should be aware what is going on. With that only we can have very effective intervention. Even when they go to UN, FAO or Geneva or anywhere, they should necessarily to hear the voices of the ground. So that is something second point. But third thing, of course, we need to unitedly fight. This is not only fisher people's fight alone. It's a fight against the corporates over food producers in other aspects all over. So without having clear, let's say, uniting with other groups, other people, farmers, fishers, workers, specialists, environmental groups, women's groups, feminists, and every groups together, it should be a collective fight to against this corporate globalization and corporates. So that is something that I need to mention. All the social movements, trade unions, progressive political parties should have alliances building to fight overall all over the world. So that's my thinking about this process.
Thank you, Herman. I don't see any hands raised, and we have already overshot the time. So I would like to bring in Jesu Ratnam for the way forward and concluding remarks, if that's okay, Susan.
Yes, of course.
Sure. So Jesu Ratnam is part of the Asia Pacific Region Fora, and she is a CC member of the WFFP. She is also leading the Women's Assembly in India that we are planning in October. And yeah, I think all of you are familiar with her, but for us, she is Jesu Akka, who has been working on these issues for over 4 decades and has always been instrumental and instigating in many of our initiatives, and also taken issues like aquaculture and CRZ violations to the court, along with CAN and have the entire team of Sneha and the federations in Tamil Nadu, women's federations have done excellent work. And today, many of them are here also participating. So welcome, Jeswaka, for your way forward and concluding remarks. I hope 10 minutes would be okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to start with, see, we started with, all are talking about narratives. And narratives and whatever it is, our own narratives and language and posters, everything. Yes, we started in 2017. We said that we are the people and we are the ocean. So there we started, and we are continuing till now with different narratives, which we have to insist again and again. It was very clear from our comrade who spoke just before me, from South Africa. He very clearly has told that, very clearly, that the language and the narratives of the communities, fishers, should come up. That should be given first priority, and that should be spoken of in all the international and the national conventions or international bodies, all the bodies and human rights bodies. All the bodies, we have to insist that they speak that language. And before that, what we believe in, what we decide, we should also continuously be aware that we don't use other languages and use our own languages. Like fishers, fisher people, instead of saying SSF, all those things, we have to be aware of. And we also, whenever there are conventions or workshops or anything, we should create a space and advocate with them and convince them that we use such terminologies and languages. That is one thing. So now, as part of Asia Pacific Regional Fora, this initiative really has provided us a lot of energies to take forward for WFFP GA8 and discourses in that, and also discourses in other regional forums. So for that, first of all, I should thank Herman, General Secretary, and other CC members, and the co-chairs, Nadine and others, for this total participation and initiation. We start in 2017, the Ocean Grab report really envisioned us that our resources are grabbed and we are losing our custodian sovereignty over the resources, land, fisheries, water, forest, and it is continuing till today. Abba. That is the reason we told, Jones again and again repeats, we are amphibians and we are not looked upon like that. Our margins are decided by the state, our landmarks are decided by the state, and we are not looked at that we need both, all the resources, forest, water, land, and all other resources related to that. So to bring out our voices heard, and we all came out with the 2021 tribunals to voice the historical customary rights of the fisher people. 2022 Conference of Ocean People and followed Human Rights Council and recent SSF Summit and COFI, we are reaching out to the international global community for resources, land, water, fisheries. As fisher people, we have to be in unity to assert and attain the sovereignty of the fisher people. Now, I would, how do we take it? How do we do it? What are the strategies? Carsten was saying, we have to strategize and speak and think of plans. Yes, we have to change our language, first of all. Even now, sometimes it never comes to our mouth. And when we speak, we don't say fishers. We say small-scale fisheries, large-scale fisheries, and all other terminologies which are deep-rooted in our mind and given to us by the UN bodies. But we have bought that, and we have, in our mind, it is said we have to de-learn it. But we also use that. So the usage of language is first. There it starts. Then narrations. Definitely, we have to create our own narratives, not the narratives which is said by UN bodies and not the narratives said by union governments, all the state governments, different governments of the states, and also our own dominant communities. That is the majoritarian and the corporate sector and the industrial sector. So we need not buy those languages and even not think of those languages. For everything, we should have our own narratives very clear and spelled out and come out with those things. And now we should make, what are the strategies? We should create our narratives, we should have things. And as Herman was saying, people had their own governance, still have in Agamu Lagoon, in India, many parts of India, the resources are, they have their own governance systems, and which is being slowly degrading. It's not that we are not given space, we are not given representation in the proper sense. Even if for namesake, we are given representations. And so the representation of fishers and equal inclusion of by women in that sectors should be there wherever the representation is given. So women play a major role. So we should think that in fisheries, we are a major contributor and a producer, and so that visibility and that should lead way to the representation as well as their narrations. So and so we have to using these narrations and outcome of this, we have to influence the bodies. So now the governance thing, whatever is practiced in locally in many of the countries like Indonesia, like Thailand, Bangladesh, that has to be documented first. There is no, because it is not visible that we are there. We have our own governance structures, which is more equal, and it is not destroying. It protects the ecology and the fishes and the resources. That has to be documented. How we manage, that is our management system, our governance structure, not the management talked about by the UN bodies and the state. Management can be done when both are equal. When the bodies, in a system where they are not equal, where is the question of management? We have our governance. We should talk of governance of the customary rights and protection and regaining our rights. So that should be the way forward. So for that, we have to, one, do all the languages. We have some, that should be, we should come out with the languages, what we use. We should come out with rhythms, and we should come out with songs, what we do, what we sing in our way of life. And we should come out with narratives also. And then that should be documented and produced. And on this is, we have started now. It should be taken forward in all the other continental fora, and then in General Assembly GA8 also. So this is, we have this way forward should be, we should aim at having fruitful discussions in GA8. And one more thing what I wanted to add, when we talk of, someone was saying, so I forgot who was saying that. When we talked about ban of shrimp industries, the state came out with a regulation. Beautiful. Yeah, saying that in spite of, we had a Supreme Court judgment very in favor of the communities and favor of the fishers. The government came out with the act, doing away with everything. Similarly, now, once Jones was speaking, I remember when we questioned about the implementation, non-implementation of the SSF guidelines, which was meant for protecting the rights of the small-scale fishers. Now, UN body, FAO, is coming for a strategic plan. What? Every time when we talk aptly and shortly about what we belittled it, is the brainwashing of these systems, and we have to be very careful. So let us take it forward, what we wanted to take it forward, what we have decided here, like documenting and insisting rights and stuff. Thank you. Oh, sorry. You told about my speak. When emotionally I speak, it comes.
Yeah, I understand, Akka, and I
Yes,
can.
okay,
It
sorry.
was a very passionate speech, and we can understand that. Thank you very much for putting those points and especially bringing in the contribution of women and women leadership, and also the need to create and strengthen our own narratives. And yeah, with that, we actually are to the end of today's session, which was a follow-up, which was not really planned, but because of multiple reasons, yesterday that happened, we had to do this today. But it was very interesting, and I'm actually very happy that we broke this session, because the presentations that happened today was very powerful and kind of laid politically contextualized, not just this particular series, but also as laying a path to the General Assembly that is going to happen. So in that ways, it was a very important session, and we will certainly try to gather all the presentations and circulate it. So friends, do send your email IDs, and so that we can, keep in touch with you. And the next session of this series will be on the 27th September. It will be on the shift from capture to culture fisheries, a false solution advocated in the name of food security. And over the multiple presentations that we have seen yesterday and today, there were many presentations that talked about aquaculture, talked about the profit-oriented solutions that are being pushed. And because we cannot have any meeting on fisheries and ocean people without addressing the issue of the shift from capture to culture. So it is a very important topic. So we are going to have a session with similar kind of presentations and interventions on the 27th of September. I request all of you to be part of that, and a request especially to the interpreters for do confirm your availability and participation. It will really help us strengthen this program. And I really thank everyone who has pitched in. I think yesterday we also went through all the names, but today, so I'm not repeating that. But yes, thank you everyone for your contribution to making this a success. And if there is any one, from Susan also and others, if they have any last remarks, Herman or anybody else, then we can kind of close this. I think someone had raised their hand. Mercy, yes. Chechi, did you had raised your hand in between?
There was some connection problem. So I couldn't raise the question before. So the thing is, for me, what I wanted to ask is the future of traditional fish workers. The future of traditional fish workers in the presence of all national and international rules and regulations for the fishing. Am I audible?
Yes, Chechi, you are audible. Can you just repeat it, please?
What is the future of traditional fish workers on the basis of rules and regulations, national and international? Yeah. So that I want to get a little more clarification in that.
Okay.
Because all these rules and regulations are pushing the fisher people, the traditional fisher people, all the more out of the face. Yeah.
Very important question, Chechi, but Sister Mercy. The third webinar actually deals with this in specificity. It is about the fisheries and fishers, the politics of scale and other conservation agenda. So I think that session would really go delve deep into the question that you have raised here. I hope you will be part of that session also, so that we can have a much in-depth discussion on this very important question. And
Priya, I think Carson and Jones raising their
okay,
hands.
Carson and Jones, I would just give you a minute each maximum. So, and we have to wrap it up now. Yeah. Yes, Carson.
I just want to say this is a question I've been waiting on for a long, long time. This cuts straight to the core of the issues, because we've talked about the scale of ocean grabbing that is happening. We've talked about how the corporate agenda is now also the agenda of the government, and all these regulations that are and policy reforms that are not in favor of fisheries. So where is the space for fisheries in the future? And obviously there's no 1 minute or 30-second answer to this, but I will argue that Herman actually in his earlier intervention paved the way for finding the answers to those questions. And I'm here thinking about the mobilization of peoples on the ground to add pressure on government at local level from the ground. And I'm here thinking about the need for more, and Herman, you said this word, I think 3 times, political education on the ground. I think these are the instruments. This is what will eventually make it possible for fisher peoples across the world to claim their right and to not be heard by government, but to take power in government, especially at the local level. And for me, I see that as the path towards ensuring traditional fishing on the very long term. Thanks.
Thank you.
So all the rules are made by smarter people, made by someone who are smarter than you. So make your own. So these are the words from Comrade Shekhwara. So that's what I want to say to Mercy Chechi, that that's what Ambedkar created his own constitution for us to claim our rights. We as a people should come up with our narratives, our laws, our rules, our governance systems. The state has to take that, and state has to acknowledge that. That's what, whether it's a protection rules or act, whatever it is. So we should not bother about their rules. Rather, we should come up with our own rules to make them acknowledged. So that is the only way. That's what Carson also said. There are different strategies how we can come together and make our own rules, because their rules are to subjugate us, overrule us, and to grab our resources. So we have to come up with our own rules to protect, safeguard, as the people of the ocean. Hence, it belongs to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jones. Yes, Mohammed. Yes.
Yeah, maybe I using Indonesian a little bit, because I'm not good in the, so we grow up in the migrant, like like a fishery so in Tegal, so many person like my friend or another, so have trafficking at in the another place in the another country, so they go back in Indonesia. They doesn't have a salary or something, so like human trafficking. So basically, and we and my friend also want to build some community one and get like my friend is not good in the job like fishery and overfishing, seperti misalnya pekerja migran paksa gitu yang tidak dibayar, is not pay off, and then he have discriminated at the vessel. So how we create the big community actually at the local and can do to the globally like that. So we must connect it. So I want to build a new community with my friends. So we want keep it have information about the fishery, about the rule and another thing. So like that. So can you describe that? So yeah, like that. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Ria, I ask your permission. Maybe I want to add a little bit.
Yes.
So, Muhammad, sorry in English, but it is very important issues that you raise up, because in the middle of the ocean grabbing, climate crisis impact, and so on, there is also impact to the changing profession which is going on in the local level. Some of my friends, for example, they are used to be fisherfolk, fisherwomen, but then they change their occupation, become the fish worker in the foreign fishing vessel and so on. This is also important thing that you highlighted, that in many countries there is a lot of issues in terms of organizing fish worker, especially those who in migrant or migrant workers and who work in the foreign fishing vessel. It's become the issues that's still ongoing on. And then thank you for raising this up, because maybe we can keep on contact, because I used to work on this issue, but there is not of them want to made such an organization, because this is very not very common for fish worker to manage what is it, union or federation or something like that. So it is very important. But in the next GA, this is also the thing that we have to highlight that about the changing occupation, which is ongoing on in the local basis, because now there is a lot of fish workers who work and then they are in the really in not even 17 years old. They have to work in the foreign fishing vessel, and they're part of human trafficking also at the sea, and it related to the IU fishing, I think. Yeah, I will send a direct message to you then. Thank you, Priya. That's my brief comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan and Mohammed, for that intervention. Yes, so I would really like to wrap today up, and thank you, everyone. And just as a parting thing, yes, Vijayan had put in a very important comment saying that it's not just important for us to bring out our own narratives, but also strategize for it. Like many of what Carsten and Jones had intervened, there is a clear strategy of how do we kind of challenge these terminologies to the kind of projects and everything that is coming, the language that has become a tool for oppression today, and taking in the very terms that we had at one point of time demanded, and now turning it upside down on the movements itself. So I think that is something that we really need to think over. If there is a takeaway from this session, I think it would be rethinking on the terminologies and whether we ourselves would like to define ourselves in terms of quantification and scales, etc. And I really hope that in November that we would come up with new terminologies, come up with new concepts or even old concepts that are rooted in recognizing the sovereign rights of the fisher people. So hoping that we would have similar engaging participation and presentations in the next session on the shift from capture to culture on the 27th September. Thank you, everyone.